And the opposite was actually true, but I didn't know that for many, many years. That actually now she's even more drawn to me. It doesn't mean it makes sense to her. I mean, I experience things that she's like, wait, what? So that's what happens for you there? And I'm like, yeah. And she's, oh, okay. But now, I don't like saying never with human behavior, but now it never escalates. Now we're just like, okay, this is what happens for me is different than you. And it just is. And we don't care anymore.
And when Glenn referred to, like, I used to try to run ahead of him, that was the early years of marriage where I didn't understand. He wasn't expressing it in like, this is painful.
Right.
It was like, this is the correct way to do it. And so you need to do it the correct way.
Yeah.
So we hurt each other a lot in the early days because we didn't understand any of this. Like, we did not understand what the disorder of the psyche. We didn't understand neurodivergency. Like, we didn't understand any of these things. And so we didn't understand emotion. So for him to express pain, we didn't even know that existed. It was just a right or wrong. It's black or white. It's just that simple. So his way was right, mine was wrong. And so then I tried to adapt to make my patterns the same as his and the routines the same as his. And that's what he's referencing when he said that I tried to stay ahead of him to keep everything perfectly lined up. And it got harder the more kids we had.
Yeah.
And it didn't even always work. So it was like such an internal thing for him that in the secrecy of it, because of course he felt so much shame about it. And then when it was kind of all laid out on the table, which was in the first decade of our marriage, because I think Skip Gross was a big part of that. So that was the first decade of our marriage. You know, then it was all of a sudden, oh, okay, there's something going on here. But I would say it took 20 years of our marriage before we understood clearer what is happening in the psyche. And so I think about even some of the stories that you've shared, Elijah, of what a huge shift your whole family has made. And I can't imagine what it was like, you know, for Christina to have to make sure the house was perfect before you came home, knowing otherwise you were going to
be dysregulated.
That was the thing, is like, she would do that and it would be like she didn't do it. I'd just come home and I'd be like, and now I'm realizing it's not because I really want the house clean, although I do. It's that it's painful when it's not. And so when it's clean, it's like, and so she would feel disregarded. She's like, didn't you see what I did? I'm like, oh yeah, it's great. But I notice when it's painful, and where there's been a rub, what you said to me, Phyllis, after that meeting was like, your family needs to get really good at you just saying pain and not having to do anything about it. And so the hard part for me now is what are things that are like part of taking care of the house as a family and order, and what's right, and what is my neurodivergence, and that balance. That is really hard.
That's part of the crucial aspect of the connection, because, you know, we've shared many times, but my straw is lined up with the logo, and that feels right to me. And some people, I'm not going to name any names, like, what the heck? This is undrinkable. It's probably poison by now. We don't know. So, and for Phyllis, this doesn't even exist. I mean, she is unable to experience any joy about this, and she's unable to experience any pain about this. She just doesn't. Her thought is there a liquid in there I can drink? And is the lid on so it won't spill? Very, very functional, very, very utilitarian. Whereas for me, it's all it's also that, but then there's also the emotional. If you went in and looked at Phyllis's closet, we'll just do a pop quiz. How many different types of hangers do you have?
I was thinking about that a minute ago.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the answer is?
Oh, I probably have 10 different types of hangers.
Please. I'll bet you $1 it's 20.
Okay, here's what's funny, just for the sake of our listeners, because we sold our house, we live as nomads. So we basically, when we're in the barn, which is where we are right now.
Barn dough.
barn dome.
Barn
an
sounds like you would sleep on
apartment in
hay.
the barn, apartment in the barn on our daughter's property, our son-in-law and daughter's property. We now have just a rack. So isn't that what they're called? Like a clothing rack that is on wheels, right? So it's very small, as you can imagine. We don't have a closet anymore. But yet when we get here, I want to hang up my clothes and put them on the rack. And I'll use any hanger, thank you very much, that I can find to hang up my clothes. Yet our whole married life, you have had a perfect hanger system.
Well, that was my follow-up question. How many types of hangers do I have?
Right now?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, you have the exact same kind all the way across the board.
Well, right now, it's always.
You have one. Well, back in the day, you were color.
Well, that's true. They were color-coded. Yeah, I did convert because, but they're all identical except my sports jackets, which are heavier. And so I technically have two different types of hangers, but I only have two sports jackets. And that feels right. And again, seriously, it feels right to me. I look at Phyllis's clothes on all these, and again, I think I'm going to win this $1. And it feels wrong. It feels painful. I look at it and I'm just like, God does not approve of this.
You can't even wear those clothes.
Right. I mean, they're going to be damaged. And Phyllis is unable to experience pain about that. She feels no fear of the clothes. And occasionally she steals one of my hangers, which I always know. This is what's funny about Phyllis and the kids. They think that they've gotten away with something. I always know. I mean, exactly. My son, back when we had our property, he used my office one day just because it was convenient, which is fine. I was delighted that he did. But when we'd been traveling and I got back home and I just called him and I said, totally great if you did. But I'm just curious, did you use my office while we were out of town? And he goes, are you kidding me? And I said, what? And he goes, I took pictures and put everything back exactly the way it was. And I'm like, don't even bother. But it was funny. We just laughed. And he was like, I was so excited I was going to get away with this. He said, literally, I walked in, I took pictures of everything. And I'm like, that's a mission you can't accomplish. That's a mission impossible. And he's like, Dad, I was sure that I'd gotten away with it. And again, I didn't care at all. But I don't even know what it was, but I could just tell that something is different. So this guy was like, oh man, I thought I'd done it perfectly. So pretty fun. Yeah. So again, and people may think we're being silly talking about hangers and whatever. These are real things. Mm-hmm. And everybody deals with something like this. And if I don't know how to process the pain, and when Phyllis steals my hangers, I'm able to just say to her, oh, sad. Somebody, and I never name names, but it's like, oh, sad. Somebody stole one of my hangers. We don't want to indict the guilty here. And it is a pain experience, but she's my friend. She's my partner. She's my lover. And okay, she stole one of my hangers and I'll be fine.
That was the biggest realization, just as in a whole. Yes, it was good for me to understand what's happening for me, but it really put into context the idea that everyone's experience is unique. And when you're okay with that, you can come with curiosity. When you think everyone's experience is your experience, you come with judgment. And that's where I felt I was losing identity because I thought everybody's experience was the same and they were just being a jerk to me. But when I realized this just doesn't fire for them at all, and there's things that fire for them that I'm like, it doesn't bother me. I don't care. And that just gives me incredible empathy for people and their experience. And it allows me to just sit in it with them and just be okay. Yeah, okay, great. I don't understand that. That's okay. But I can regard it. And so it's really helped me with others.
Right. And to not have to pathologize it. Because, seriously, and again, it sounds like a trivial thing, but sitting here, the idea of me putting my clothes on different types of hangers, I'd rather just walk around naked. Let's just forego the clothes because, that's just undoable. But also on the other side, the idea of saying to Phyllis, okay, you have to have identical hangers always. She'd be like, what? Mm-hmm. Why would I bother with that? Why would I take the time? I have a shirt, I have a hanger, they match. And that makes perfect sense to her. And I would now argue that actually that's more sensible than the way I live. Although my systems are so tight that I do them so automatically and smoothly, they don't take up much extra time anymore. They used to. I used to need 33 hours a day just to get through my daily routine. Well, there ain't no such thing. Every day is 24 hours, whether you like it or not. And it was so exhausting for me as well. And I remember a therapist that I saw many, many years ago, and we just started talking about some of this. This is pre-connection codes, but he said, your life must be exhausting. And that just occurred to me, and there's a lot of identity in it. And I was like, yeah, it kind of is. Every day is impossible. Every day is impossible just on my own. And then if I live with other people who mess up my systems, life's impossible. It just can't be done. Yeah.
Wow.
And again, that emotion all of human behavior is pushed by emotion. That emotion pushes me. If I don't process the emotion, it's going to be nasty, which is so much of what resulted for us for so many years. So I love it. It's just so powerful.